Thank you for sparing your time to join us here at the Honda Motor Company FY 2022 first quarter financial results press conference. We'd now like to officially begin the conference. My name is Okamoto from Corporate Communications. I'll be serving as the moderator. Allow me to introduce to you the executives represented. Director, Executive Vice President, Seiji Kuraishi. How do you do? I'm Kuraishi. Director, Senior Managing Director, Kohei Takeuchi. I'm Takeuchi. How do you do? I'd like to call on Mr. Kuraishi to present the first quarter financial results, please.
Let me explain the first quarter results of the FY 2022, as well as the summary of the full year outlook. First, regarding the unit sales of Honda Group in the first quarter of the FY 2022, the volume sales outperformed year-on-year in all business segments due to the recovery of the demands from the last year, which had a large impact by COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, for motorcycle businesses, 3.879 million units sold, automobile businesses 998,000 units, and life creation businesses 1.708 million units were sold. I'll explain about our main market situations next. The total market in Japan has outperformed the same period last year because the demands recovered from the last year decline due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Honda too had impact by semiconductor supply shortage and so on. However, we outperformed last year unit sales with the effective launch of the new Vezel launched in April. N series had reached 3 million cumulative unit sales in Japan since its launch. The total market in FY 2022 still remains uncertain going forward due to concerns of a resurging COVID-19. Honda revised the forecast from last time, taking advantage of the new Vezel and new model Civic that will be launched in this autumn. We will aim to maximize the unit sales. Total market in the US has surpassed the level same period last year, thanks to increasing vaccinations for COVID-19 and effective economic stimulus measures, which greatly have recovered demand. Light truck models propelled all business of Honda, which have updated the monthly sales record in 3 months consecutively, exceeding the market growth. New model Civic, launched in June, is receiving favorable acceptance by customers. We expect the total market of FY 2022 to keep the solid demands. However, impact of semiconductor supply shortage and so on still will remain. Honda has revised the last forecast. Though we will endeavor to minimize the impact of a supply shortage of the chips and to catch up with the production. The total market in China has seen the demands recovery owing to the effective measures for economic stimulation by the government. However, the market underperformed year-on-year due to the impact of the semiconductor supply shortage and so on. In spite of such supply shortage of chips, Honda achieved better than the market growth with the incremental sales of XR-V and so on. Regarding the total market of calendar year 2022, we expect the demand to stay steady with the residual impact of semiconductor shortages. Honda has revised the last forecast. We will plan to expand unit sales by new model launch and EV lineup improvements with a Breeze PHEV premiered in Shanghai Motor Show in April. Moving on to the motorcycle business. The total market has outperformed year-on-year, with once dropped demands due to the COVID-19 now are up recovered. Honda has performed better year-on-year in all of the markets. However, in India and in Malaysia, we suspended the production activities for a while because of the resurging pandemic. Speaking of the total market of FY 2022, because of the COVID-19 infections rising up again, mainly in Asia, the future is uncertain. Honda have revised the last forecast mainly for India. Next, summary of the financial results of the first quarter FY 2022. Despite impact by supply shortage of semiconductors, soaring raw material prices and so on, as compared to the significant impact by the COVID-19 in the same period last year, our unit sales increased. And as the initiatives we have pursued to solidify the existing businesses being effective, the operating profit has increased by 356.9 billion yen to mark 243.2 billion. The profit for the period attributable to the owners of the parent for the first quarter increased by 303.3 billion yen, hitting 222.5 billion yen, with incremental investment profit from the equity-based affiliates. This slide shows the sales unit as well as the PLs. Next, with regard to the FY 2022 outlook, we plan to increase both sales revenues and the profits over FY 2021 results based on the increase in sales units and effective initiatives to solidify existing business and so on. From the last year forecast, unit sales are revised, reflecting the latest semiconductor supply plans in addition to the impact of a COVID-19 resurgence, mainly in Asia. Those impacts will be absorbed by additional suppression of the G&As, cost reduction effects, and so on, and we revised the operating profit guidance to add 120 billion yen to hit 780 billion yen. Regarding the profit for the period attributable to the owners of the parents, with incremental operating profit and so on, we revised the guidance to add 80 billion yen to hit 670 billion. The slide shows the unit sales and P&Ls. Speaking of the dividends and share buybacks, annual dividends for FY 2022 stays the same as we announced last time. In the Board of Directors meeting convened today, we made a decision for share buybacks. For the purpose of improved capital efficiency, execution of the flexible capital strategies, and so on, we plan to buy back our common stocks up to 18 million shares, or the maximum sum of 70 billion yen of the acquisition prices for the acquisition period between August 5th and December 31st of 2021. Next, Mr. Takeuchi will present you the details of the results.
Let me begin. First, the FY 22 first quarter 3-month financial results. Regarding Honda Group unit sales, motorcycles increased in Indonesia, India, amongst others. Automobiles dropped in China, while increased in the United States. Life Creation increased in the United States. Next, income statements. Due to increase across the board in all business segments, sales revenue increased from the same quarter last year to 3,583.8 billion yen. Operating profit was 243.2 billion yen due to increased sales revenue and model mix. A share of profit of investments accounted for using the equity method was 55.9 billion yen due to profit increase in Japan and Indonesia. And next is a change in profit before income taxes. Profit before income taxes in the first quarter was 311.3 billion yen, up 384.7 billion yen from the same quarter last year. Due to profit increase attributable to increased sales revenue and model mix, as well as currency effect, operating profit reached 243.2 billion yen, up 356.9 billion yen from the same quarter last year. Moving on to results by business segment. Motorcycle business. Due to increase in profit attributable to increased sales revenue and model mix, operating profit reached 80.6 billion yen. Next, automobile and financial services for automobile. Both combined, operating profit is estimated to be 159.2 billion yen. Automobile business, due to profit increase attributable to increased sales revenue and model mix, operating profit was 70.6 billion yen. Financial services business, due to increase in used vehicle prices, amongst others, operating profit reached 92.2 billion yen. Life creation business and others, operating loss was 300 million yen, of which aircraft and aircraft engines operating loss was 8.3 billion yen. And next is cash flows in the non-financial services in FY22 first quarter. Due to temporary increase in inventory, cash flow was minus 99.5 billion yen. Cash and cash equivalents at the end of the first quarter was 2,297.8 billion yen. Moving on to FY22 consolidated financial forecast. First, Honda Group unit sales. Motorcycles, due to the resurge in COVID-19 infection in mainly Asia, we are forecasting unit sales to be 17.4 million units. Automobiles, given the resurge in COVID-19 infection, we reviewed our semiconductor supply plan, and the FY22 forecast is now 4,850,000 units. Life creation, mainly expected to increase by 400,000 units in Europe and North America. Our revised forecast is 6.3 million units. Next, FY2022 consolidated financial forecast is as shown. And change in profit before tax. Profit before tax is 1 trillion, up 85.8 billion yen from last fiscal year. Operating profit, despite the provision for credit losses and SG&A increase, thanks to profit increase attributable to increased sales revenue and model mix, operating profit is up 119.7 billion yen. Share profit of investments accounted for using the equity method due to TOB03 related companies in the last fiscal year, resulting in a one-time impact of 56.8 billion yen. Profit is down 52.7 billion yen. Compared to the forecast announced last May, despite profit drop attributable to decline in unit sales, and which is resulting in change in sales revenue and model mix, and due to further cost reduction, cost control efforts, and currency effects, profit before tax is forecast to be up 130 billion yen. Lastly, FY22 forecast, capital expenditure, depreciation, and R&D is as shown. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your attention. So now we'd like to move on to the questions and answers part of the session today. We have already announced you the Zoom invitations for those in the media, and because of the interest of time, please limit your questions to 2 questions per person, please. Thank you for your cooperation. So please press the raise a hand button on the Zoom system, please, if you have questions. So first question from NHK, Mr. Tsuboi, please. Mr. Tsuboi, hello? Can you hear me? Yes. Tsuboi from NHK. Thank you very much for your presentation today. I have 2 questions. One is semiconductor shortages, plus in Southeast Asian countries, the pandemic is resurging again. That's a concern. But after the second quarter onward, what is the prospect of the regular production plans? And second question, until when do you think the shortage of the semiconductor and components problems continue? In the long run, what is your prospect on those shortage of the parts, components, and semiconductors? Thank you for your question. So after the second quarter onward, our prospect is, for instance, based on the first quarter results in the market, thanks to the vaccinations progress and also the government economic stimulus measures, thanks to those things, apart from some areas or regions, and of course, the impact by the COVID-19 last year was quite significant. But basically, the sales itself has grown quite significantly. The market is good, and the semiconductor situation going forward and the COVID-19 still unclear, uncertain going forward in both terms. However, the sales is going to stay steady going forward. That's our prospect. And in terms of those parts influence or impact, in the beginning of the fiscal year, when we had an announcement, we talked about our forecast of the FY 2022. With the unclear semiconductor supplies, we had thought that there could be an impact on the 100,000 unit production. However, in the second half, we said that we will try to catch up with the production as much as we can, looking at the situations in order to minimize the impact on the production. So when we put together our budget, we didn't include the impact by the semiconductor shortages. We stayed our unit sales prospect to be 5 million instead at that time, in the beginning of the year. But globally, we tried to minimize them. However, in the first quarter period, the situation is contained within our expectations. However, Renesas recovery is a little bit slow, and also in Asia, lockdown of the cities are going on. Because of that, based on the latest business situations, we put up those full year forecast. The latest one now is down revised to 4.85 million units. 150,000 less. And of course, the VOIs, the variants of concerns, and semiconductor shortages, there are many factors impacting on the businesses going forward, still uncertain, I should say. However, we will watch out the market situations, and we will try to hit the better than the last year unit sales this year. And in order to have a stable part supplies, we are speaking to the several companies and suppliers and sites so that we can get supplies from more than one places. And also we will try to keep appropriate level of the stocks, inventories for different parts of components so that the impact on the production is minimized. But in the long run, we need to commonize those parts and components and generalize the use of those parts and more stable supplies by multiple suppliers. But of course, we cannot avoid impact by the lockdown. As of now, in Asian countries, there are some lockdown situations for the pandemic in several places. Because of that, the production is squeezed. And in other words, we can divert those components and parts which are not needed in those lockdown sites to other countries like China or Japan. This way we can adjust the production situations globally. This way we can try to minimize the impact on the manufacturing status. Thank you very much for your question. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, please. Next is from Yomiuri Shimbun newspaper. Mr. Katagiri, please. Mr. Katagiri, you are muted, I think. I'm Katagiri from Yomiuri Shimbun newspaper. Can you hear me? Thank you. I have two questions. First, for this quarter, China compared to the United States, the domestic unit sales seems to be low. Is this due to the shortage of semiconductors, or are there any other reasons for this? Can you give an explanation for the reason? The second, about the forecast. About the motorcycle unit sales, it's down, and yet your profit forecast is up. So can you explain this? And the cost reduction effort. I think that you're expecting more effect, but can you explain what specific effects you are anticipating for this cost reduction effort? Mr. Kadekiri, thank you very much. Well, first about the domestic sales. Well, the domestic sales, the economic activities are recovering, and the demand, compared to last year when we had the severe impact of the pandemic, I think it is recovering to what we were seeing before the pandemic. Meanwhile, talking about Honda, due to the shortage of semiconductors, there's a drop in production volume, and especially for us in the global market, in our global business, we are allocating our semiconductors here in Japan. For the April-May impact for us was big, and meanwhile other companies, the April-May impact was not that big. And because of this, for the first quarter especially, Honda appears to be low in volume. But in July, other companies are starting to suffer from the shortage, and therefore the new Vezel mainly, and the N series, the demand is very strong. And we believe that in the second half, once the supply of semiconductors recover, we can achieve the unit sales equal to other competitors and much better than last year. And about the forecast, and the reason why we are forecasting a drop in unit sales, as I've already explained, in our budget, originally we did not include the impact of the semiconductor shortage, but this time, due to a number of new factors, we had to review the unit sales. Especially in the second half, we were planning to offset and recover, but from the second quarter and onwards, we believe that there will be greater impact than we expected in terms of the unit sales. Depending on the region, we have to produce overcapacity, and therefore we believe that it's difficult to recover by the end of this fiscal year, and this has been factored in this time. As for the motorcycles, I think it's mostly India, but again, in the first quarter, including the lockdown, due to the spread of the coronavirus infection, there was a drop. But now in July, India, the pandemic situation has improved significantly, and currently, though there was a drop, we are expecting to increase sales, and that is what we're forecasting for now. And the cost reduction effect? Yes, Mr. Takeuchi will respond. Well, cost reduction, it covers a lot of things, but from 2-3 years ago, as a company, we have been trying to reduce costs in all areas possible in our daily production activities. So we have tried to make efficient our production. In the first quarter, also, we have seen an improvement, and therefore we will continue to have this impact of the cost reduction going into the second quarter and after. And I think it's an accumulation of small efforts that we are seeing a big result. Thank you. What specifically are you doing to reduce the cost? Which costs are going down? And about the unit sales, I believe that the unit sales is expected to drop, but the profit and sales revenue is expected to increase. As for the cost reduction, well, according to our current cost structure, we are purchasing about 80% of components from outside, and 20% is made in-house. But we want to make efficient the production, and therefore we are examining what needs to be changed, and also how we can reduce our cost to produce the same number of units. We are looking into the cycle time, how to reduce the cycle time, and the man hours, etc. So it's accumulation of all these small efforts that we are seeing a reduction in our cost. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Katagiri. Next one from Nippon Keizai Shimbun, Mr. Abe, please. Abe from Nikkei Shimbun newspaper. Thank you. So, semiconductor shortage. So, impact on the unit sales is as much as 150,000. However, operating profit and also the sales revenues, how much impact are you getting on those two, sales and operating profit, because of the semiconductor shortage? And I know that the future is uncertain in that regard still, but by the end of this fiscal year, what is your prospect of impact, negative impact by the shortage of the semiconductor? How much impact did you think for that? And also the raw materials cost increase, including the semiconductors. Its impact, how much impact do you expect for this fiscal year? And any countermeasures for that, please? Thank you for the question. So the expectation of the semiconductor shortage impact, 4.85 million units that we announced this year, actually is the number based on the adjustment with the semiconductor suppliers as of now, and that is the number that we are adjusted and now understand that this will be as much as as many as we can, of course, do with the semiconductors. And of course, for the COVID-19 end, it is not controllable, therefore we cannot say much in that end. However, as I said, the global production adjustment will be done so that we will keep our target of 4.85 million unit production for the year. And I'll talk about its impact on the sales revenue for the automobiles, 150,000. That's the impact, and out of which 90,000 impacted on the OP. The rest, that includes 60,000 for China. And volume mix is volume mix area that is including those impact, and our expectation is 400. That's the impact on that. And in the beginning of the fiscal year, as compared to the last one, the raw materials such as the precious metals are soaring, prices going up. About 250 billion yen cost increase now is included in the expectations for this year for the raw materials cost increase. Precious metal increase of the prices actually are a little slower than the total situation of that. Aluminium, the steels, platinum, there's expected cost increase of those, and offsetting with that, 250 billion yen upward change will be expected for that.
Thank you. Nikkan Jidosha Shimbun. Mr. Mizutori, please. Mr. Mizutori? Yes, I'm Mizutori from Nikkan Jidosho Shimbun newspaper. Yes, thank you. I have two questions. First, about the U.S. Well, the incentives are going down, and I think this is resulting in better results. But in the first quarter and the FY22, do you have any specific numbers about the incentive? And about China, in the first quarter, I think that the retail volume unit sales is increasing, but yesterday the Wuhan factory operation was suspended, and in Asia, you are seeing this, but what about the outlook for just China only for this fiscal year? Let me respond in regards to your question regarding China. About China, we are seeing that the new models are being introduced, and we believe overall, as a market, the business will be better than last fiscal year. The results will be better than last year. But I said because of the components shortage and also the various uncertainty related to this industry, we have to pay attention to these developments. As for Honda, there is this impact of the semiconductor shortage, but the new models and also the lineup, strengthening our lineup of EVs and others. We think that because our brand and also our models have been well received, and I think that in the first quarter we has been a record high. We want to enhance the strength of our brand and also expand the lineup of our EV cars, and Honda Connect will be evolved, so that we will be providing products which are filled with fun features. As for Wuhan, and from August 3rd, the factory has suspended operation. But this is because of the development area where our factory is located. There was a cluster at the supplier there, and therefore we had to suspend the operation. And we are consulting with the local government at Wuhan, and we don't think that this will continue for a long time. And as for our impact, well, already we have the shortage of semiconductors. We have to adjust the production even without this. And we don't know how long this situation will continue, but we believe that in principle the impact will not be that big. And we are targeting towards sales more than last year, so our target remains the same. About the incentive, please. Yes, allow me to explain about the incentives. Well, yes, in the first quarter, the incentives on a cash basis. Well, and auto data, there it includes the dealers' incentives. But looking at the incentives as we define it in the first quarter, I think it was much lower than the previous year. And therefore, I think it's very low, the incentives, but still, the incentives towards the inventory, and because of the accounting, they have to adjust the inventory and also keep down the incentives. And therefore, this fiscal year, the outlook compared to last year, I think it's about the incentive is about 10% lower than the previous year.
Thank you. Next question. Asahi Shimbun newspaper, Mr. Kamiyama, please. Kamiyama from Asahi Shimbun newspaper. Can you hear me? Yes, please. Two questions. One is semiconductor shortage, as was being touched upon in the first quarter. How many units of the productions impacted by the semiconductor shortage in the first quarter? And then you may not be able to tell, but how long would that situation continue? That's the question one. And second question, in the Southeast Asian countries, lockdown maybe causing impact, and what is going on at the dealers, distributors over there? What is going on because of the lockdown in Southeast Asian countries? So the impact on the production, first quarter, about 170 to 80,000 units of production impacted by the semiconductor supply shortage now in the first quarter. But until when will that continue? We will try to catch up in the second half this year, and we have produced 150,000 in the first place, and in the second quarter, I think we thought the impact will be resolved, but in the second quarter at first, however, because of the pandemic in the Asia countries and also dealers there, plus productions lost in some places, and those impact is actually being carried over to the second quarter. And in the second half, in principle, I believe we can catch up with that. We can recover that in the second quarter. And impact of the lockdown in Southeast Asian countries. At the moment, larger impact are seen in Indonesia, in Thailand, and in Vietnam, and in Malaysia. And dealers, of course, have different situations in different areas. I wouldn't say all of the dealer distribution activities are stopped. That was really a variable from one place to another. Basically, those dealers are still active, selling their products as usual. Thank you.
Next question, please. Automotive news. Mr. Hans, please.
Hi, もしもし、聞こえますか？
はい、聞こえております。Can you hear me?
ありがとうございます。
Thank you.
よろしければ英語で話してもいいですか？
Can I speak in English? お願いいたします。大丈夫です。Yes,
Thank
please.
you. I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the inventory situation in the United States. It must be very tight. The numbers say it's very tight compared to last year. How is that impacting incentives? Are you able to lower incentives because you have such low inventory? And what adjustments are you making to make sure that you can get more cars to dealers to increase those inventory levels? In other words, how are you trying to boost inventories in new ways?
はい、すみません。まず、このアメリカにおけます在庫状況についてお聞きしたいと思います。で、今現在、数字的に見ますと昨年比、かなり逼迫しているという状況だと思いますし、この在庫が非常に少なくなっているということが、インセンティブにも影響するんではないかというふうに考えておりますけれども、この今現在のこの在庫状況と、そしてインセンティブとの関連性、在庫が少ないからこそインセンティブが下げられているのかどうかということと、そしてまたさらに今後どういった調整を図っていくのか、ディーラーに対して必要な在庫量を提供するためにどういった調整をするのか、従来と違った方法を考えていらっしゃるのかなどについて教えていただきたいと思います。
はい、
Well, first about the inventory situation. Well, the industry on the whole, the inventory level is quite low. And regarding Honda as well, because of the shortage of components, mainly semiconductors, there's impact on our production. And in regards of Honda, the industry average is 25 days. Honda is currently 23 days, I understand. And therefore, compared to the normal situation, there is a very low level of inventory. And given this tight inventory situation, cars which are due to be delivered to the dealers, we are trying to increase the inventory cycle and make it faster so that we can deliver more. The United States, yes, the people, they buy it and they take home the car with them on that very day. So we need to deliver these new cars to the dealers as early as possible. But through digitization and other efficiency measures, and we have been doing this in the past as well, but using these new methods, we want to try to adjust the inventory. But in regards to the United States, thinking about the business style there, unless there's an inventory at the dealers, it'll be a very tough situation, though normally we will try to reduce the inventory. And including the online sales, we have to think about how we can try to sell despite tight inventory. About the incentives, to begin with, Honda, our incentive is low. And the average of the industry is 2,700, and our average is 2,100. So in regards to Honda, I don't think that there has been such a significant drop in incentives, but depending on the product, there are some differences. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Weekly Toyo Keizai, Mr. Yokoyama, please. Toyo Keizai, Yokoyama, can you hear me? Yes, thank you. I have two questions. One is about automobile businesses operating profit. In the first quarter, 3.1%. Last year, full year basis, it was 1%. Therefore, it is improvement. And what are the factors behind for that improvement? And question two is about European businesses. European Commission said that by 2030, the hybrid and those cars of those types are banned. And what's the plan for that? Swindon plant is being closed. And what is your positioning of European businesses, per se? And if you have any plans for the European businesses going forward, please share with me. Okay, the operating profit for the automobiles, as you said earlier, last year, operating profit margin that was 3.1% at Honda, and pretty high now because of the North American markets and other areas with the more numbers of units volume sold, and also there were negative impact as well because of the soaring raw materials and also the cost reduction efforts and also the the commercial value of the vehicles. That also is impacting, and also I think mainly it is because of the unit sales, the volume number going up, and that is impacting on that number, plus the cost reduction efforts being fruitful finally. And then as for the European businesses, electrification businesses, in Europe, by 2022, we would like to make main products 100% electrified, and that is our plan and our activities now. And when we say EVs, that includes HAV as well. Therefore, because of the announcement recently, actually we need to look into the specific contents of that now, specifically with regard to what they want to do with the environmental issues. However, in 2050, we are trying to achieve carbon neutrality. However, in response to the announcement recently, we'd like to accelerate our electrification activities for our products. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question will be the last question. Last question is Nikkan Kogyo Shimbun newspaper, Egami-san. Mr. Egami? Ms. Egami. Yes, my name is Egami from Nikkan Kogyo Shimbun newspaper. Can you hear me? Yes. Well, you have been talking about the semiconductor shortage and also the lockdown and the pandemic spread in Southeast Asia. But in the mid to long run, well, you have been making various efforts like cost reduction and supply chain review. So do you have any plans that you can disclose for the mid to long term? And the second question about capital investment. Well, you say that there is no major change, but due to the external environmental changes, is there anything that you might change in terms of the substance of capital investment, though the amount is the same? About the supply chain, well, as I earlier mentioned, in the long run, in order to have a stable supply, stable procurement, we need to have more sources of semiconductors and consider how we should be holding our inventory. So there are a number of things that we are currently studying. The supply chain review needs to be done, I think, as a result of all these factors. And about the capital investment, yes. The capital investment. Well, it does include a number of things, and there are the renewal of existing equipment and new equipment. The external environment has been changing, and though the amount remains the same, if we have to accelerate our electrification efforts, I think what we'll be investing in will change. But currently, we have nothing that we can announce here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, this concludes our session for the first quarter financial results for the FY 2022. The resources available on the website. So thank you very much, and thank you very much indeed again for your